beautiful humans. Welcome to another episode of Role Models, Juicy Conversations with Beautiful Humans. I'm Jennifer Norman, founder of the Human Beauty Movement and your host. Today's guest is the one and only Nitika Chopra. Seriously, folks, Nitika is my kind of gal. After living with severely debilitating psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis for over 30 years, Nitika found the courage to open up about her health. She realized that life-changing power of support and community helped her on her own self-love journey, and now she's doing the same for thousands of others. You know, if you've ever felt like you didn't belong because of the health challenges you face, Nitika gets it. She's the founder of Chronicon, an inclusive conference focused on uplifting people who are living with chronic illness. And she's also expanded the concept to live online through the Chronicon community. It features inspiration, advocacy, and empowerment for chronically ill folks across the globe to connect. Welcome, Nitika.
Thanks so much for having me. I was so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you now. I'd like to go back to the early days because you were first diagnosed with psoriasis at the age of 10, right?
Yes, I was.
Tell us about what it was like to all of a sudden see this as a child.
Yeah, I mean, it really caught me off guard, and I can still sort of feel that when I think about it and I go back to that point in time. I was like most 10-year-old kids, I was sort of oblivious to these bigger issues that a lot of people face because I was a, relatively healthy kid and I wasn't really thinking about my body in this particular way. And I ended up getting a spot on my left arm, and my family thought, maybe it's eczema or something. And my parents had a little eczema that went away pretty quickly with a cream. And so they weren't really worried about it. And over time, I finally got to see the doctor and they did like a biopsy and all this stuff. And we found out that it was psoriasis. And I remember feeling the worry that my family had because they were sort of told this could be a more serious thing. And I feel like I kind of closed my eyes and then opened them again. And it's like a year later and I'm completely covered. So it started with one spot, but I ended up having it from the tip of my foot to the tip of my head for about 17 years of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
For those who aren't familiar with psoriasis, could you describe it and what you were feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. So psoriasis is an autoimmune disease, but it's one that impacts your skin. And so a lot of people who get it, they get it like maybe in their scalp or on their joints, like on their elbows or their knees or something like that. But I ended up, as I said, getting it all over. And it's basically like, it itches like chicken pox. It's like very, very, very itchy. And there's a few different types of psoriasis, but the kind that I have is these red scaly patches. And so it's like rough, dry skin. And essentially your skin is like regenerating way too fast. And it's creating new cellular skin on top of your regular skin cells. And so it creates these scaly patches. So there's different kinds, but that's the kind that I had. And it itches really badly. And so then you're kind of like flaking dry skin, almost like how you see when someone has dry skin and they have like dandruff or something. My whole body was like that. And then it itches. And if you scratch it, it would bleed. Like it was really hard.
Oh my goodness. And then later on, when you were about 19, that really started to escalate into something different. What was that?
Yeah. When I was 19, I was in my college dorm and I was like trying to open like the inside bag of like a cereal box, like a box of cereal. And it's like a simple movement to open that. And for some reason, like my hands wouldn't work and I didn't know what was going on. So I ended up getting some testing done and found out that I had psoriatic arthritis, which is very common to go hand in hand with psoriasis. Some people have one and not the other, but I got both and I got it through all the bones in my body.
Oh my goodness. And then shortly after that, you started to go and see some doctors about it. And one doctor in particular said that your bones were going to start to become deformed if you didn't do something else. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a journey to get to that point, but basically I had gotten psoriasis so young and I had really only done like topical treatments for it. Other treatments that we have now were not as available back then. And then when I got psoriatic arthritis, I had tried a medicine, but it really backfired. It like didn't work on me very well. So I became kind of scared to try something new that was more like medicinal. And then, after about 5 or 6 years of really like having a hard time walking, really kind of becoming nearly immobile for a lot of the first half of my 20s. My rheumatologist at the time finally took x-rays of me, and he was just like, your bones are going to become permanently deformed if you don't stop this degenerative process that's happening. And that, obviously, I was like 25, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not really living my life. That was a huge part of it too. I just felt like I couldn't really live, because I was stuck in bed a lot. I was in pain a lot. I didn't really have the physical freedom to like go explore, go figure out, even like for anyone who's been in pain, it's like it consumes your mind in such an intense way. You know what I mean? So all those things were happening. And I finally, after my doctor said that, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to try medicine again, even though that first time didn't work and it kind of set me back. I think there's been updates and, hopefully I can find something that'll work this time. And I did. And I found a medicine that really helped me and allowed me to kind of have a new lease on life.
That's amazing. Now, there is always this struggle, especially for us who are more inclined to prefer natural products and natural ingredients and things like that. It's almost been a taboo if you go to the Western medicine front. And I know that I battled that a lot with my own situation with my son, who also suffers from a genetic disorder, which is a mitochondrial disease. And for a while, you're looking for holistic treatments. You're looking for things like that. And granted, we called the shamans. We did all of that. We did the acupuncture. We did a lot of the healing. And that continues to be modalities that we do practice. We just had a Reiki session the other day. But when the body needs it, medicine is there for a reason. There is absolutely no taboo and nothing wrong and no shame in needing to dip into Western medicine for those things that are not curable or otherwise addressed for your own purpose. It's like, yes, some people might benefit from doing the holistic thing and it may work great, but every body is unique. Everybody is different. And it is okay to need to go into medicine for what needs you so that you can find comfort. And it gets you to that place where you can elevate to a situation where the funk starts to lift away, right? The pain starts to be alleviated. And then you can start functioning and getting to a place where you can participate in your own self-healing a bit more. Is that kind of accurate for you too?
Yeah, for sure. I wish there wasn't such a taboo on taking medication, because I definitely, for those early years of my 20s, I was learning about self-love. I was learning about, manifestation and love and light and all these things. And I also was learning about acupuncture and things like that as well. And I still follow so many of the things that I learned back then. Like I try to keep a positive mindset. Even a simple thing like drinking enough water and always having water with me.
Mm-hmm.
I go to an acupuncturist. Now I have long haul COVID that I'm dealing with lately. So
Mm-hmm.
I go to an acupuncturist every week. It's not one or the other, but I also take my medication every, 2 weeks. And that's when I'm supposed to be taking it. And I think it does such a disservice to shame people, which I think is a lot of what happens, that one way is totally wrong or the other way is the only way. It's just, I think they can all live together. It doesn't have to be so all or nothing. And I think that's actually the way that we create real harmony for our bodies and ourselves and our minds even. So yeah, I experienced that a lot. I definitely felt like just so afraid. I even felt afraid to tell people in my work, as an entrepreneur, and I'm talking about all these like self-love things or talking about living with chronic illness. I was so afraid to tell people that I too have to take medication. And like, no, I didn't just sit on a mountaintop and say Om for like 2 days and then not have any chronic illnesses. It's constant. And I think it's just a shame that we shame people into thinking that they need to do it another way.
Yeah, the one that I've been hearing a lot lately is about the idea or the concept of dis-ease, which is disease, but people believe that, oh, there's something inherently going on in your subconscious or in your system that your body is fighting against, and it's manifesting as dis-ease. And so yeah, I guess that could be a thing, but I honestly believe that, things are going to happen. The fact that you may have cancer or the fact that you may develop psoriasis is not your fault. And I think that that's the thing that the idea or the concept of dis-ease places upon people is like, oh my God, I'm doing something. There's something that's unsettled within my soul or within me that is manifesting. And how do I get rid of this through either meditation or all of these things, which may not necessarily be all about Western medicine, but again, I just want to kind of blast out the stigma about dis-ease or about having chronic illness, because there is no shame about it. There is only the fact that this is normal, this is life, and that it's definitely a place where we do seek to alleviate pain and discomfort. And doing that through medicine, doing that through any kind of healing modalities that are right for you is perfectly okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I heard that dis-ease thing like years ago, and I grabbed onto it when I first heard it because I was like, oh my God, okay, like if I just think perfectly, or if I just like heal these negative thoughts that I have, then that means I won't have this dis-ease in me. Like, okay. And I did that for years to myself. And to be honest with you, I feel like that made me more sick than actually made me feel better, because I was so stressed about thinking anything less than love and light. Everything is great. Everything's going to be amazing. That anytime I had like a real thought or like a tender thought, or I had any fear or anything that's like completely normal, I would feel scared that I was making myself more sick, which is just not the way, people, not the way.
Yeah. And on top of that, now that we're touching on like mental health
Yeah.
and whatnot, I know like from a cultural perspective, the idea, oh, you've got something wrong with your skin, or, oh, your body doesn't look like how we ideally want your body to look. No matter what that could be, whether that is an extra 5 pounds or acne or wrinkles or what have you. Tell me what that was like, because culturally, I believe that as a South Asian woman, there was something with your family and culturally that really also impacted you growing up, right?
Yeah, as much as we've talked about how it's not totally connected to only your thoughts, your disease, right? We've talked about that a lot. There is also this part of me that is so connected to my spirit and so connected to something greater than me. And a lot of times I feel that through my body. And so growing up in a family where in the Indian culture, it's very much about keeping things under wraps. It's very much about doing the things that are going to look good, doing what other people will think is okay, doing things that you're obligated to do or out of duty versus what's true for you. I did not come out of the womb that way. I just did not. I have never been that way. And that doesn't mean that I'm like ruffling feathers just to ruffle feathers. It's not that. But my mom, ever since I was 2, has called me a pataki, which means firecracker in Hindi. And it's because like anything, if it doesn't feel right to me, I will speak up. I will say no. I will ask why. I will call people out. I just want the truth. That's what I've always strived for. And in a family or in a culture where the truth is kind of secondary to what looks good, it was really inconvenient. It was really, 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 really inconvenient. And a lot of that I always found was really connected to my health. And I honestly still feel that today, like so many of my friendships. And now I'm 41 and I feel like I finally have settled into a groove with so many friends that I feel are in my life and love me because I am this way. Yeah. Versus for so long, I felt I was friends with or trying so hard to be friends with or be in relationships with people who like tolerated this part of me. But that's the beauty of getting older. Now I get to be like, oh no, I've seen the other side. I want to be friends with the people who love me because they come to me because I'm always demanding the truth. So yeah, in terms of cultural upbringing, it was challenging. That doesn't quite acknowledge the physical part of it, but I actually think that that part was so much harder than any other part. And I actually also really struggled with my weight a lot in that conversation. It's funny, like I think my psoriasis and my psoriatic arthritis was always so intense. They were trying to fix me, but they never made me feel ostracized because of that. But it was more when I was really, really sick, I would lose a lot of weight and then I would be acceptable. And a lot of times when I really wasn't feeling well and I was like maybe emotionally eating or my inflammation was really high or whatever it might be, it was not okay that I was heavier. So that's actually more the thing that I've had to work on in terms of like my appearance and my family, and then coupled with wanting the truth at all times.
I completely can relate from the perspective, and I think a lot of people can, because, it is a journey for you to like discover who you are. It's almost like that journey back to ourselves, right? Where, there's so much that we take as external influence from the people that we love or the people that we look up to for cues on what's acceptable and what's not. And rather than really discovering it for ourselves and being okay with how we are, that creates such a friction in us being able to accept ourselves. And that causes us to feel insecure in ourselves, and it resonates and it creates all sorts of things that happen where once you do find that, it's almost like a surrendering, right? It's almost like, I can't fight this anymore. You get to a point where, wow, I'm suddenly okay with myself and I'm just going to be me. And then once you are, you realize that law of attraction works and you find the people that love you for who you are, because, once you love who you are, other people will too.
Yeah, it's so true. It's taken me a while to get there. I just turned 41 a couple months ago, and I feel like I'm finally settling into that. I'm sure it's going to even more and more and more as I, get older. But yeah, this birthday, I really feel like that's been like the biggest difference that I finally feel. If you don't like me or don't want what's going on over here, like, please leave. Like, I'm actually fine with that, because like I have people who do want exactly how I am, but it takes time to get there.
Yeah. And there'll be days where it's more, and then there'll be days where you'll feel a little bit, ooh, this is not a great day for me.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. It's just like, as long as there's more moving forward in that direction as we're going through time and going through life, then, I consider that a win. I think that's a pretty successful life.
Totally. I agree.
Yeah. So then as you were on your path, you started to almost get to this place where you had a ritual of self-care going. You kind of got into the shtick of like, that was the thing that helped you to, I think, elevate and lift yourself into this place where, oh, I have a little bit more energy to devote to myself. And then, girlfriend, you went all out. You know what I mean? You started to become a global TV host on Naturally Beautiful on Z Living. You represented Fresh, a beauty brand, on QVC. You founded Your Bella Life, an online lifestyle magazine. So what gave you this impetus to really go into this place where you were gravitating towards an image-based career?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way to put it. So when I was 15, I like to tell the story because I think nowadays we can look on social media or wherever and just see the finished product of someone, or even just like feel competitive. Like it's like all about the results or the end goal or whatever. But when I was 15 and I was really in the heart of all the devastation I was going through with my body, and I was really struggling. And I was in high school. I had a really hard time concentrating in class and got bullied a lot and all these things. And a lot of that came back to like what I was dealing with my health. I had this experience with what I call God, but call it what you want. But to me, I'm a very spiritual person, and not a religious person really at all, but a very, very spiritual person. I had this moment where I really was like on my knees, just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this anymore. I feel like I don't understand why you brought me here. Like, this is what I was saying out loud to God. I locked myself in my closet and was sitting at the bottom of my closet on my floor. And I was just like, I don't know why you brought me here, just to like put me through this much suffering. And I feel like so many people have had that experience, right? Where you're just like, make it make sense. I don't understand. I actually do not understand. And I heard a message that was so clear. I'm getting so many chills. It's been so many years since I've been telling this story, but I always get chills whenever I share it. And I heard a message that was so clear. And all I heard was, this is not about you. And I didn't know. I'm getting chills.
I'm getting chills too.
Yeah, like my arm hair is growing so much right now.
Yeah, that's when you know. That's when you know it's a divine message.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that really meant, right? I was 15. There's barely internet back then. Like, there was no blogging and, all my friends that are authors and like all these things. There was none of that. But I knew it was true. I didn't understand what it meant, but I knew it was true. So from that moment forward, I allowed myself to believe that my suffering was not about me. Mm-hmm. And I sort of, ever since that moment, and even today, even with doing lots of things, I'm constantly on the expedition of like, what is this? Why did you give me 2 decades worth plus of suffering? Why did you put me through that journey? What is it? What every single day I want to be living up to what you told me that my purpose was, like the reason for you doing this. Mm-hmm. And so my first attempt at that was Bella Life, yourbellalife.com, which is closed now, but I had that. Initially, I started it because I really wanted my own talk show, because I really believed that my love for performance and my love for talking and, all that kind of stuff was meant to be married with sharing a deeper story. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any experience. I didn't have any knowledge of how to do it. But I basically created Bella Life as a sort of template for what a talk show could be. And prayed and charged my credit card and hired a graphic designer. And then 3 years later, I ended up getting my own talk show on global television. But that still wasn't it. It was amazing. It was so beautiful. It was such an incredible journey. But for me, talking about beauty and talking about self-love and all those kinds of things are so important. But I really wanted to be talking about chronic illness. And I didn't know how to do that in the beginning. And I didn't even know that I was allowed to do that, because I didn't know anyone who was really talking about those things. It was that first moment that led me to that. And it sort of unfolded from there.
Yeah. I think that that's an extraordinary story. And to the people who are entrepreneurs, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, and who feel like, oh, they're afraid to fail. It's like, oh gosh, what if I fail? And that fear is holding them back. Whereas if you just think about it like school, like life is all about practice. And it's just as if you're learning how to play ball, or if you're in school, it's like perhaps that step was your elementary school, and then it's kind of like, congratulations, you graduated, that moves aside. And it creates a new path for you to start opening up into something new, which is bigger and more aligned with who you are becoming. And so, I think that the idea of being image-based, it was almost like, because you were your little firecracker, I think it's just like, heck with you, psoriasis, heck with you. It's like, this is me. And it was like your way of almost pushing yourself and forcing yourself into a position where it's like, this is the beautiful life that I am creating. This is the natural life that I am creating. And I can see how, as you're sifting and sorting and going through that process too, that it really didn't nail it for you either. And so perhaps this next phase, which is your Chronicon story, this is the new evolution of it being okay to be chronically anything. It's like, let's lift off the stigma, let's lift off the shame, let's give people an opportunity to come together and celebrate those wins, however big or small that they might be.
Yeah.
So tell me about Chronicon. Tell our listeners what this is and what they can expect there.
Yeah. So I launched Chronicon in 2019. It's a platform that's dedicated to elevating the lives of those living with a chronic illness. A lot of people don't realize almost half the population of the United States has a chronic illness. That's over 133 million Americans. And a chronic illness is anything that has persistent symptoms for 3 months or longer. So a lot of people might not even realize that they have a chronic illness, which happens actually a lot. They don't even know that they can claim being a part of that population. So I launched Chronicon because I have had multiple chronic illnesses for most of my life. And I genuinely always felt like I was the only one. And I have people in my family that have chronic illnesses, and I still felt they don't have the same ones that I do. They don't have the same symptoms, so I still felt so alone in my journey. And it kind of just came to an inflection point where I was like, wait a second, I feel so alone. Are there not that many of us? What's happening? How come? And then I realized that there are this many people that have a chronic illness. And I just saw such a disconnect, and it's such a disservice to all the people out there that are going through so much of what I've gone through, what your son has gone through, and you've gone through as a caretaker. And we feel like there's something wrong, that we are the only ones, or no one understands us, or we're doing this completely in a silo. And I actually think of it very similarly to the curvy industry, and how curvy women would often be told by lack of marketing and lack of advertising and lack of media that they don't get married, that they don't go to workout classes, that they don't go looking cute at brunch, right? They just like were left out of those conversations. And now, of course, the curvy industry is a $24 billion a year industry. And they have shown in a massive way that not only do they do those things, but they're absolutely beautiful and they're thriving and they're multidimensional. They're not just curvy. And so I really see that that's what is needed and what is possible for us chronically ill folks. We deserve our own industry that is dedicated and really pervasive in the media and the landscape out there in a way that has us feel truly seen. Mm-hmm. So Chronicon is my answer to that. Chronicon is our way of taking that step and saying, we are here and we deserve to be here. We deserve to be marketed to. We deserve to be a part of society's narrative in a positive way, in a multidimensional way. And like, let's do something about that. Mm-hmm. So it's a conference and an online community. And yeah, it's the love of my life, honestly.
Well, that is super special. And so how does somebody join, or are there criteria to be part of it?
We're having a conference in Brooklyn this fall, October 28th.
Okay.
And when the tickets are available in probably July, if you follow at Chronicon Official, you'll see notices on our Instagram, so you can join us there. But there's an online community, as I mentioned, and that anyone in the world can join. We have people from all over the world. You just have to sign up. It's thechroniconcommunity.com. And it's a monthly membership that we have. Criteria, if you read what's going on in there and it resonates with you, you're welcome to join. We have people who are caretakers. We have people who are facilitators, who are doctors. We have people who, of course, are actually chronically ill. So I believe that we need to all come together. And so it's open to whoever wants to join. And especially if you have a chronic illness. And we have events every single week, which is amazing. And we also have content every single day. So it's a beautiful, supportive place to be.
That sounds amazing. Now, the curious thing that I've come across with some particular groups that I've been part of, groups on special needs that I've been part of MITO support groups and things like that. And I've kind of come in and out of them because I found that when I first had received my son's diagnosis, I was in this panicky, I need to figure out everything that I can possibly figure out about this disorder and what I can do about it. I think that I was just in like research and help me panic fix mode. And so I joined all of these different groups asking questions and getting a lot of wonderful answers. And then I think as I grew into it, I was finding that it no longer served me, at least some of the groups, they were kind of keeping me in this space of overwhelm and of hearing a lot of stories that were keeping me in almost a place of helplessness. And so for my own mental sanity and health, I was like, you know what? I feel like maybe I can do this on my own. And so it was okay for a time of my life. And I totally think that it's great for people. Those particular ones were great for people who were looking for answers, but it became exhausting, like physically exhausting for me to see a lot of other people going through their issues. And unfortunately, a lot of children who are passing away and different things like that, which for my own fragile sensibilities, it became really hard for me to take on that additional emotion, even though it's like you want to help, you want to do what you can, but at the same time, you're also trying to heal and deal with all of the things that you're dealing with at home. Are there any tips or advice, or are there any subsets that you can think about or that you offer that are good for people on the different stages of their healing journeys?
That's such a great question. Chronicon is for the person who is ready to learn what it means for them to thrive in their life with their illness. And we have themes every single month. The first theme of the year is all about thriving with a chronic illness. And we talk about how that word can even be triggering if you have a chronic illness, because sometimes we can't get out of bed, or we have awful brain fog and we can barely get through a meeting, or whatever it might be. But we talk a lot in that month about how it is about knowing yourself well enough so that you know what that means for you in that moment. It's not about comparing it to anyone else. And so every single month and every single day in Chronicon, we talk about what it means to celebrate our lives. We have gratitude threads. We have threads about winning every single week. It's not that maybe we're doing as much as the person next to us, or that we're doing as much as we were doing before we got diagnosed, but it's about taking the opportunity every chance we can to focus on what we are doing and focus on how much we have grown. You know, and I think so often when you get a diagnosis, I know this is definitely been the case for me, you're just sort of treated like you're just a sick person.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with Chronicon is like, we are fighting every single day to make sure that people know they are a full human being, seeing life through the lens of the chronically ill, and having a chronic illness, but they're singing. We have arts and crafts. We have a whole group that does art projects together. We have different events where we're learning about plants, and we're learning about burnout, and we're learning about all these different things, that have nothing to do necessarily with the fact that we have chronic illnesses. We're always bringing that to the forefront, and we're always acknowledging that there's nuances because we're living with certain conditions, but it's so much more than that. And I think that forums and something you're talking about, I've experienced the same thing. There's like, for the medication that I'm on, there's all these forums, that you can go in, and it is terrifying. It is terrifying. It gives me so much anxiety. It makes me so depressed. And a lot of people who join Chronicon say that they've had that same experience. Like, Chronicon is completely different from that. It doesn't mean you can't share when you're having a tough time, but what we do at Chronicon, instead of trauma dumping, we'll do something like, hey guys, I'm in the hospital. I'm having a crazy surgery. Can you send me your cat pictures? Or can you send me, your pictures of your fur babies? You know what I mean? So it's like, we acknowledge it. Like, this is annoying. I have to get another surgery. And can you write in the feed with some cute pictures of your fur babies, So that's kind of the difference. And I think that's such an important thing that you bring up, because a lot of people are nervous to start and join communities. They're already dealing with so much. Like, how am I going to handle my own pain along with holding everybody else's? That's not what Chronicon is about.
Oh, that is so enlightening. And I'm so happy to hear that, because yeah, it can be that there is that misery loves company component.
Yeah.
And so when you're feeling really like helpless, there are probably places which will serve you really well in that space where you can just hold space and vent if you need to. But then being part of a community where it's nothing but venting and nothing but people just commiserating doesn't help elevate you out of that place and get you to that healing place where we all want to stay more positive. And so, yeah, a freaking cat picture is amazing in those times. I want to see happy puppies like prancing down the hallway. And not that that's like ignoring the problem. It's just diversions are important. Laughter is really, it's medicine. Laughter and happiness and joy is medicine. And any kind of little bites of positivity that you can get can be super, super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we laugh a lot in the Chronicon community. And so many people have become like in real life friends with people that they've met online. And it's been such a blessing. So thanks for that question.
It reminds me of the time my son was in the ICU, in the PICU at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. He had just been put on life support and things were so dark and gloomy. But then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I decided to put on rave music, and I blasted it to the point where the nurses started coming into our room and dancing with us, and we were flashing the lights, and it just made everybody crack up. It just was that little bit of levity in what could be a crazy situation where you just don't know what's going to happen, but sometimes you just need that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible. It's really incredible.
Yeah. Having lived with psoriasis and also being a curvy girl, would you ever have thought that you'd see yourself on an advertisement in a swimsuit in a New York City busway? You're a model now. Tell me about what this was like.
Absolutely not. I would have never, ever guessed that. It's been really wonderful. It's been really just such an honor, honestly. The reason why I'm passionate about it is because it really speaks to creating that dialogue and that conversation in media. And when you can see it, right? So when another young girl who has psoriasis sees me wearing my bathing suit and being like, whatever, I'm up here, it's fine. Mm-hmm. That means that she can do that, and she can have more confidence. And so that's why I think it's so important that we continue to kind of fight through our own insecurities to just keep going. And yeah, it's been such an honor to have that experience.
I think that is so beautiful. And not only that, I mean, you are such a beautiful person inside and out. And so absolutely, you deserve that kind of limelight. There was a point in my career when I was working in the beauty industry for a very large company. And one of the board members, who was one of the only women in the company in upper management, said out loud, when you're 50 and a woman, you disappear. You are invisible. And I thought to myself, well, gosh, that's really sad. At the time, I was probably in my 30s, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't have much time. And what is it about this industry that makes people feel like they are unworthy or they just don't deserve to be seen? Fast forward here, I'm 52 years old and we're on the same model board, and I just can't believe it either. Who would have ever thought that a girl who's 5'2", South Korean, and over 50 would ever be a model? That was just a completely astounding moment for me when I got that call.
I know. Well, it's so fun to do this together. I'm excited to see what we'll create out of it. It's like such a journey.
True. So now I know that you've got probably lots of advice or things that have worked for you. And I never really like to give advice myself because it's like, take what you want. It's like if any of the things that we say here on this podcast or anything that you might see on a blog or whatnot, try it on like a new dress. And if you think that it feels good, then try it on and see what works. But if it doesn't, then move on. But are there any things that helped you along the way, or anything that you would impart as far as wisdom that people living with chronic illness and how to get to a place of self-love?
Well, I'm with you on the not giving advice thing. I agree. Yeah, I shy away from that a little bit. But what I will say that's helped me is I think we often don't take enough time to get quiet. We're so busy, and I can be guilty of this too, especially like when I'm having a hard time. That's like when I avoid getting quiet, like more and more and more. And I just find that has probably been the biggest help for me over the years, is no matter what's going on, whether it's with my body or in relationships or with work or whatever it might be, just taking that time and whatever getting quiet means for you. So sometimes it's like I get into bed a little early and I just lie there and kind of pray out loud, or I kind of, talk to God out loud while I'm trying to fall asleep. Or other times I turn off all technology and I'll just take my water and I'll sit by my view and I'll look out and I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to take in what's in front of me and not focus on anything else. So it really figure out what feels good to you. But I really think getting quiet allows us to center into more kindness, into more truth and honesty with ourselves, and have a gentler, more kinder approach to what we're navigating and like what might be really, really challenging in that moment, versus trying to force and push and compare and feel like we should be in a different place. I honestly think just getting quiet and allowing yourself that really, really makes a big difference. And it's something I don't think we do enough. So it's a really basic thing. And there's like 1,000 other things I can say, but I think if you could do that one thing, you would probably feel a little bit more supported and a little bit better.
Yeah, I completely a million times endorse that statement. And I often say, we are humans being, not humans doing. And when we are humans doing, we're not humans being per se. And so getting quiet really gets us to that place where we're not actioning, we're not forcing so much, we're not thinking about all the things that are on our to-do list. Rather, we're thinking about, how do I want to be? How do I want to feel? What is my life like? What do I want it to be like? How am I serving myself? How am I serving others? And you start getting to those bigger, deeper questions rather than being influenced by everything that you see on your screens. And it helps you to be more true to yourself and to find what you really need and what you really want, rather than being so susceptible to a lot of the news and things that are happening elsewhere in the world, and letting that impact our emotions.
Yeah.
Well, Nitica Chopra, it was a delight to speak with you today. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom and what you're doing with Chronicon. Everybody, I invite you to follow Nitica on her website as well as on Chronicon and Instagram. I'll be putting all of the handles below so that you can find her. And we'll see you again for another episode of Role Models next week.